Millionaire CEO laughs at a black female street mechanic's engine repair. The next day, Ferrari calls her a genius. That's exactly what Richard Sterling was doing at that moment, laughing loudly enough for the entire Beverly Hills Motorworks workshop to hear his cruel amusement. You really believe I would let someone like you touch my $500,000 Portofino? The words came out between uncontrolled laughter as he pointed at Jasmine Carter, who had just calmly explained the real problem with the Ferrari's engine. The mechanics exchanged uncomfortable glances. Some lowered their heads, pretending to organize tools. Others stopped what they were doing altogether to watch the degrading spectacle. Jasmine stood motionless, her calloused hands crossed over her chest, watching the show of arrogance unfold before her. At 28, she had seen this scene play out more times than she cared to remember. Mr. Sterling, Mike, the shop manager, tried to intervene, his voice heavy with embarrassment. Maybe we should hear what she has to. Mike. Richard cut him off sharply, his voice echoing through the air-conditioned luxury workshop. I pay $50,000 a year for maintenance at this shop to receive professional service, not to listen to theories from someone who probably learned mechanics by watching YouTube videos. Richard's laughter had a particularly venomous quality, the kind of sound privileged people make when they believe they are surrounded only by those who share their prejudices. He gestured theatrically, as if entertaining an invisible audience of billionaire friends. Jasmine took a deep breath, her nostrils flaring slightly, the only sign that the words affected her. It wasn't the first time her expertise had been questioned based on her appearance. Growing up in the Watts neighborhood of Los Angeles, she had learned early on that her knowledge would need to be 10 times greater than any white man's to receive half the recognition. The flashback came naturally. At 12 years old, lying under her grandfather's '69 Chevelle, listening to him explain how each component of the engine worked in harmony. Jasmine, baby, his deep voice echoed between the metal and concrete of the makeshift garage. Engines don't lie. They don't see color, they don't judge where you came from. They respond only to true competence. Let me guess, Richard continued his performance, now walking in circles around her like a predator. You grew up fixing cars in your dad's garage and now you consider yourself an expert on high-performance vehicles? His laughter grew in intensity. Some of us actually invested in a proper education to deal with machines of this caliber. The other customers in the shop, all white men in expensive suits, began to pay attention to the scene. Some smiled discreetly, clearly approving of the spectacle. One whispered something to his colleague, eliciting muffled laughter. What Richard didn't know was that Jasmine had graduated from MIT with a degree in mechanical engineering, summa cum laude. That she had worked 3 years on the development team at McLaren Racing before returning to Los Angeles to care for her ailing grandmother. That her mobile workshop, Carter Precision Motors, had a 6-month waiting list and customers who flew in from other states just to consult her about problems other mechanics couldn't solve. Your problem isn't electronic, Jasmine said softly, her voice cutting through the air like a sharp blade, completely ignoring the laughter. It's a harmonic misalignment between the turbo and the fuel injection system. The pressure control valve is operating outside the ideal frequency. 5 minutes of adjustment and your Ferrari will run better than when it left the factory. Richard wiped away tears of laughter, clapping slowly in sarcastic applause. Harmonic desynchronization? Pressure control valve? Did you just make those words up? He turned to the technicians, gesturing dramatically. Are you people listening to this mechanical poetry? James, the senior technician at the shop, cleared his throat awkwardly, his tools trembling slightly in his hands. Actually, Mr. Sterling, we've tried everything in the official Ferrari manuals. We've replaced sensors, recalibrated the onboard computer 3 times, even contacted the factory in Italy. Maybe a second opinion. A second opinion from someone qualified, James. Not from someone who set up shop in a trailer parked in some forgotten alley in Watts. Richard took the Ferrari keys from Jasmine's hands, making a point of avoiding any physical contact, as if she were contagious. Get back to work. And next time, screen who you let in here better. Not just anyone should have access to an environment like this. The workshop was plunged into an awkward silence. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioning and the ticking of the Swiss clock on the wall. Everyone present could feel the tension in the air, but no one dared to defend Jasmine or question Richard's attitude. Jasmine watched Richard walk away toward the courtesy Maserati, his footsteps echoing like hammer blows on the polished concrete of the workshop. But there was something in her eyes that those present couldn't quite decipher. It wasn't resignation, it wasn't anger. It was the peculiar serenity of someone who knows secrets that others will one day discover. "I'm so sorry about that," Mike whispered, approaching her after Richard left, his voice heavy with genuine shame. "He can be extremely difficult when he's frustrated. We haven't been able to fix his Ferrari for 3 weeks now." "Don't worry about it," Jasmine replied, already walking toward the exit with measured, confident steps. "Some people need to learn the hard way. And believe me, that lesson is coming faster than he thinks." She stopped at the glass door and turned one last time, her eyes scanning every face in the workshop. "When you guys can't fix his problem in the next 2 weeks, and when he's desperate enough to swallow his pride, my card will still be on the windshield of his Ferrari." As everyone laughed at that seemingly impossible prediction, no one noticed the small smile that formed at the corner of Jasmine's mouth, the kind of smile that only exists in those who have weathered much worse storms and not only survived but emerged stronger. If this story of prejudice and overcoming adversity touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out how this moment of humiliation would become the catalyst for a turnaround that would change everything forever. 3 days had passed since the humiliation at Beverly Hills Motor Works, and Richard Sterling was determined to turn that episode into an amusing anecdote for his social circles. Over lunch at the exclusive Polo Lounge, he entertained his fellow businessmen with a dramatically exaggerated version of events. "You should have seen the look on the girl's face when I told her I wouldn't let her touch my Ferrari," Richard laughed, gesturing theatrically with his $1,000 glass of French wine. "She just stood there, pretending she knew something about harmonic imbalance. Can you believe it? As if someone like that could understand anything about Italian precision engineering." David Thornton, CEO of a technology company, laughed approvingly. "These people always try to pass themselves off as experts. It's amazing how they believe that watching a few videos on YouTube qualifies them for anything." What Richard didn't know was that Jasmine had grown up hearing exactly that kind of talk. At 16, while working as an intern at a luxury car repair shop in Newport Beach, she had learned to become invisible when wealthy men discussed business next to their expensive vehicles. That was how she had learned about tax fraud, corruption schemes, and dirty deals that financed these men's ostentatious lifestyles. That same afternoon, Richard received a desperate call from Mike at Beverly Hills Motor Works. "Mr. Sterling, we need to talk urgently about your Ferrari. We tried one more procedure this morning and, well, the problem has gotten significantly worse." "What do you mean, worse?" Richard felt a twinge of panic. "You said you had everything under control. The engine is now experiencing intermittent failures. Sometimes it runs perfectly, other times it loses power completely. Our latest diagnosis suggests that it may be necessary to replace the entire engine block." Mike hesitated before continuing. "We're talking about an intervention of at least $200,000. Richard felt the blood drain from his face. $200,000? To fix a car that cost $500,000 and is fully insured. The warranty doesn't cover damage caused by improper adjustments made by third parties, Mike explained awkwardly. Technically, since Miss Carter touched the vehicle before the problems worsened. She didn't even go near the engine." Richard exploded. The woman just looked at the car. "I know, sir, but legally I need to document that there was unauthorized contact. It's insurance protocol." While Richard struggled with the growing feeling that he was being manipulated, Jasmine received an unexpected visitor at her workshop. An elegant woman in her 50s with a slight Italian accent pulled up in an immaculate McLaren P1. "Are you Jasmine Carter?" the woman asked, her voice laden with genuine curiosity. "My name is Isabella Romano. I'm Ferrari's Director of Engineering for the West Coast. I heard an interesting story about you at the Automotive Engineers Conference last week." Jasmine raised an eyebrow, curious. "What kind of story?" "A colleague mentioned that you diagnosed a harmonic resonance problem in a Portofino just by listening to the engine. That's extremely unusual." Isabella surveyed Jasmine's simple but immaculately organized workshop. "Where did you study automotive engineering?" "MIT, mechanical engineering. Then I worked for 3 years with McLaren Racing at their facility in Woking, England." Jasmine watched the genuine surprise on Isabella's face. "I came back to Los Angeles when my grandmother got sick." Isabella nodded slowly, processing the information. "McLaren Racing, you worked on the development of the new generation of hybrid engines?" I developed the synchronization system between the electric motor and the combustion engine in the P1. I also worked on acoustic optimization to reduce harmonic vibration at high performance. Jasmine crossed her arms, clearly interested in the direction the conversation was taking. Why do you ask? Because the problem you described in Portofino is exactly what our team in Maranello has been trying to solve for 6 months. It's a known defect, but extremely difficult to diagnose without specialized equipment. Isabella paused significantly. And you identified it just by listening. Richard, meanwhile, was discovering that his public humiliation of Jasmine had spread further than he had imagined. A video recorded discreetly by one of the workshop technicians was circulating in employee WhatsApp groups and had inevitably made its way onto social media. "Rich man humiliates black mechanic and then begs for help," was the caption accompanying the video on Twitter. Within hours, it had 15,000 views and angry comments from people sharing their own experiences with prejudice and discrimination. Jennifer, Richard's assistant, called nervously. "Mr. Sterling, maybe we should hire a crisis management company. Your name is being mentioned negatively on several platforms." "It's just the internet, Jennifer. It'll blow over in a few days," Richard replied, but his voice betrayed his growing concern. His technology company depended heavily on his public image, and government contracts were especially sensitive to controversies about discrimination. Back at Jasmine's workshop, Isabella made an unexpected proposal. "I'd like you to take a look at some problematic cases we have. Not officially, of course, but as an outside consultant." "Consultant?" Jasmine smiled slightly. "And what would be my official qualification for that?" "Results," Isabella replied simply. "At Ferrari, we care about who can solve problems that others can't. Your background and experience speak for themselves." That evening, as Jasmine pored over the technical files Isabella had left her, she received a call from an unknown number. It was James, the senior technician at Beverly Hills Motor Works. "Jasmine? This is James from the shop you were at last week. Listen, I shouldn't be calling you, but the problem with Sterling's Ferrari has gotten a lot worse. And well, I think you were right about the diagnosis." "Go on," Jasmine said calmly. "We've tried everything. Literally everything. We've replaced parts, recalibrated systems, even brought in a specialist from the factory. Nothing works. And now," James hesitated, "now we're suggesting replacing the entire engine because we don't know what else to do." Jasmine was silent for a moment, processing the information. "And Sterling? How is he taking it?" He's desperate. The insurance company is questioning the warranty because of your visit. And there's this whole thing on the internet now." James sighed. "Jasmine, I know you two got off on the wrong foot, but do you really think you can fix it?" "James," Jasmine said softly, "I always knew I could fix it. That was never the question." As each new complication only strengthened something inside her that her oppressors couldn't see, a quiet determination fueled by the very injustice they sought to impose, Jasmine began to realize that the universe was conspiring to give her the perfect opportunity to demonstrate that competence has no color, social class, or gender, and that those who underestimate others based on prejudice are actually building their own downfall. While Richard Sterling struggled with the growing reputation crisis and the faulty Ferrari, Jasmine was executing something none of them could have imagined. James' call had planted a seed, but what would sprout would be much bigger than a simple repair. The next morning, Isabella Romano returned to Jasmine's workshop with 3 Ferrari engineers, all Italian, all skeptical about finding solutions coming from a simple workshop in Los Angeles. "Jasmine, this is Marco, Giuseppe, and Francesca. They have come especially from Italy to better understand your diagnostic method." "Signora Carter," Marco began with a heavy accent, "Isabella told us about your intuition with engines. At Ferrari, we rely on decades of tradition and cutting-edge technology. How do you explain diagnosing problems without our specialized equipment?" Jasmine smiled and led the group to a workbench where she had completely disassembled a V8 engine. Every engine has a unique acoustic signature. When there's a misfire, the harmonic frequencies change in specific, predictable ways. She placed a stethoscope on different parts of the engine. "Listen." Giuseppe frowned. "I don't hear anything unusual." "Exactly. Because you've been trained to rely on machines. I've been trained to listen to what machines feel." Jasmine made an almost imperceptible adjustment to a part. Now listen again. The change in sound was subtle but undeniable. The three engineers looked at each other, clearly impressed. Francesca was the first to speak. That's extraordinary. You can isolate specific frequencies just by ear. I can do more than that, Jasmine replied, her eyes shining with quiet confidence. I can predict when an engine will fail weeks in advance. Meanwhile, Richard was discovering that his problems were multiplying exponentially. The video of his public humiliation had reached 300,000 views, and angry comments flooded his company's social media accounts. Even worse, 3 major corporate clients had cancelled contracts, citing incompatible values as the reason. Mr. Sterling, Jennifer, his assistant, entered the office with a stack of papers. The Ferrari still isn't working, and now we've received a notice from the insurance company. They're considering denying coverage for unauthorized modification by a third party. What modification? Richard exploded. The woman didn't even touch the car. Technically, sir, she had access to the vehicle. And there's video showing you rejecting her services in a way that could be interpreted as discriminatory. Jennifer hesitated. The insurance company's lawyers suggest that this may have created legal liability. Richard sat heavily in his Italian leather chair. In 1 week, he had gone from successful CEO to the target of public criticism, with a broken Ferrari and potential legal problems piling up. At Jasmine's workshop, Isabella made a proposal that would change everything. Jasmine, after observing your work, I have authorization from Ferrari's board to make you an official offer. We want you to become our exclusive technical consultant for the West Coast. That's unexpected, Jasmine replied, processing the implications. There's more. We also want to license your acoustic diagnostic method. Our engineering team is convinced that your approach could revolutionize our preventive maintenance. Isabella paused significantly. We're talking about a 5-year contract worth $2 million, with royalties on each implementation of the technology. Marco added enthusiastically, Signora, in Italy we say che il genio non ha confini, genius knows no boundaries. You proved that today. Jasmine felt a wave of emotion, but maintained her professional composure. I accept the offer, on one condition. What is it? Isabella asked. I want to start with a specific case. A Portofino that's been giving us trouble for a few weeks. Let's say it will be my practical test. Isabella smiled. You mean Mr. Sterling's Ferrari? Exactly. Jasmine's eyes flashed with a determination that Isabella recognized. It was the same look she saw on the faces of the best Formula One drivers moments before an impossible pass. That afternoon, Jasmine received a desperate phone call. It was Mike from Beverly Hills Motor Works. Jasmine, I know we have no right to ask this after what happened, but we're completely lost. The Ferrari's engine is failing in ways we've never seen before. James said you mentioned you could fix it in 5 minutes. And Mr. Sterling? Did he authorize this call? Well, he doesn't know I'm calling. But Jasmine, if we don't fix this soon, we're going to have to admit publicly that we couldn't fix the car. Our reputation. Mike, Jasmine interrupted him gently, tell Mr. Sterling that you received a special referral from Ferrari Corporation. Don't mention my name initially. Just say that a technical consultant certified by Ferrari itself wants to examine the vehicle. You'd do that? After how he treated you? Mike, this isn't about him. It's about proving a much bigger point. After hanging up, Jasmine called Isabella. I need a favor. Tomorrow, when I go to Beverly Hills Motor Works, I'd like you to accompany me. Officially, as a representative of Ferrari. Sure, but may I ask why? Because some lessons about respect and competence need to be taught the right way. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply to be excellent at what you do. The next morning, Richard received a call from Mike with a mixture of relief and despair. Mr. Sterling, we have good news. Ferrari Corporation has sent a technical consultant to examine your Portofino. She has impeccable credentials and is accompanied by an official company representative. Finally! Richard exclaimed. When can I go over there? They'll be there in an hour. The consultant has assured me that she can diagnose and resolve the problem on the same day. Richard ended the call feeling relieved for the first time in weeks. Perhaps his luck was finally changing. What he didn't know was that across town, Jasmine was donning her most immaculate uniform, carrying her precision tool case, and preparing for a demonstration that would completely redefine the concepts of competence, respect, and hasty judgment for everyone present. Just when everyone believed they were witnessing yet another desperate attempt to solve an impossible problem, something extraordinary began to take shape, not just in the faulty engine, but mainly in the power dynamics that were about to be completely reversed, proving that sometimes the universe conspires to create perfect opportunities for justice for those who have been unfairly judged. Richard Sterling arrived at Beverly Hills Motorworks with renewed confidence, adjusting his tie knot as he walked across the parking lot. Finally, real professionals would solve his problem. He didn't even bother to check social media that morning, completely unaware that the video of his humiliation had surpassed 500,000 views. "Where's the Ferrari consultant?" he asked Mike, who avoided his direct gaze. "She's examining your vehicle in the VIP area," Mike replied nervously, accompanied by an official company representative. Richard headed toward the back of the workshop, where his Ferrari was surrounded by sophisticated diagnostic equipment. Two female figures were hunched over the open engine, one in an elegant business suit, clearly Italian by her expressive gestures, and the other in an immaculate technician's uniform. "Sorry for the delay," Richard announced his arrival. "I'm Richard Sterling, owner of..." Jasmine turned slowly, a small smile playing on her lips. "Hello again, Mr. Sterling." Richard's blood instantly turned to ice. His face went through a series of transformations: confusion, recognition, shock, and finally pure, desperate anger. What is this person doing here? Isabella Romano approached with the natural elegance of someone accustomed to commanding tense situations. "Mr. Sterling, allow me to introduce Jasmine Carter, our new exclusive technical consultant for the West Coast. A graduate of MIT, former engineer at McLaren Racing, and now part of the official Ferrari Corporation team." "That's impossible." Richard exploded, his hands shaking visibly. "You can't be serious." "Very serious," Isabella continued unperturbed. "Ms. Carter has just signed a $2 million contract with us. Her revolutionary diagnostic methods will be implemented in all of our worldwide workshops." Richard turned to Mike, desperate. "Mike, tell me this is some kind of bad joke." "Mr. Sterling," Mike swallowed hard, "the Ferrari Corporation confirms all of her credentials. And, well, she identified the problem in less than 10 minutes. Harmonic desynchronization between the turbo and the injection system," Jasmine said calmly, wiping her hands with a towel. "Exactly as I diagnosed it the first time. The repair took 15 minutes. Richard felt his legs buckle. "No. It can't be." "Test the car," Isabella suggested, handing him the keys. With trembling hands, Richard started the Ferrari. The sound coming from the engine was perfect, not just fixed, but better than when the car had left the dealership. Every rotation was harmonious, every acceleration smooth as silk. "How?" was all he could whisper. "Competence," Jasmine replied simply. "Something that, as you yourself said, people like me shouldn't have." At that moment, Richard's cell phone began to ring incessantly. Jennifer, his assistant, was calling in a panic. "Mr. Sterling, where are you? The situation has exploded. The video has over 800,000 views, and the press is calling non-stop." "What press?" Richard asked, but he already knew the answer. Isabella pulled out her tablet and showed him the screen. CNN Tech, Forbes, Wall Street Journal. They all want to interview our new consultant about how she solved in minutes a problem that certified technicians couldn't solve in weeks. Richard read the headlines with growing horror. Ferrari hires black mechanic humiliated by racist CO, genius has no color, the story of Jasmine Carter, executive loses millions after discriminatory video goes viral. "My contracts," he muttered, scrolling frantically through his phone. "3 companies have already canceled partnerships this morning," Isabella commented casually. "Apparently, discrimination isn't compatible with modern corporate values." James, the senior technician, approached awkwardly. "Mr. Sterling, I wanted to apologize. Jasmine was right all along, and we should have listened." "Listened?" Richard exploded, completely losing his composure. "You ruined my life because of this. Finish the sentence," Jasmine said softly, but her voice carried an authority that made everyone in the shop stop what they were doing. Finish it and show these cameras who you really are. Richard looked around and realized that several people were filming discreetly. Shop employees, curious customers. Even Isabella had her cell phone strategically positioned. Sterling tech stock is down 22% this morning alone, Jasmine continued, consulting her own phone. Apparently, investors don't like CEOs who become symbols of corporate discrimination. Richard sat down heavily in a nearby chair, reality hitting him like an avalanche. In 1 week, he had gone from respected executive to social pariah. His Ferrari was running perfectly, but his life was completely destroyed. "Why?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Why are you doing this to me?" Jasmine stopped organizing her tools and looked at him directly. "I haven't done anything to you, Mr. Sterling. You did this to yourself the moment you decided that my value as a person depended on the color of my skin or the address of my workshop." Isabella added, "Ferrari has a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. We are considering permanently banning customers who demonstrate behavior that is incompatible with our values." Ban. Richard blinked several times, processing the implications. "No more Ferraris, Maseratis, or Alfa Romeos for you," Isabella confirmed. "And we will share this information with other luxury brands in our consortium." Richard's phone rang again. This time it was his board of directors. With trembling hands, he answered and put it on speaker without realizing it. "Richard, an emergency meeting has been called. We need to discuss your position in the company immediately. The situation is untenable." Jasmine closed her tool case and walked toward the exit. "Mr. Sterling, thank you for giving me the opportunity to prove that competence has no color, gender, or zip code. Your Ferrari is running perfectly now, something I could have done in 5 minutes if you had treated me like a human being from the start." Richard watched her leave, surrounded by Italian engineers who treated her with the respect and admiration he had denied her. Outside, a CNN van was parked, waiting to interview the woman who had become a symbol of resistance against corporate prejudice. As the camera lights flashed and the world discovered the true story behind the viral humiliation, one question echoed in the air like an ambulance siren. Is it possible to rebuild a reputation after its true nature has been exposed to millions of people, or are some bridges, once burned by the fire of prejudice, impossible to rebuild? 6 months later, Jasmine Carter received the Innovator of the Year award from Ferrari Corporation, her revolutionary method being implemented globally. The $2 million contract had become $5 million with royalties that made her a millionaire before the age of 30. Richard Sterling was cleaning tables at a roadside restaurant. Fired, broke, abandoned by his elite friends, he had lost everything: his mansion, his cars, his company, which now bore the names of his new partners. The Ferrari he had refused to let Jasmine touch was now being used by the Italian company itself to demonstrate her technique worldwide. "Competence has no color," Jasmine said in her lecture at the World Engineering Conference. "When someone tries to belittle you based on prejudice, remember, they are revealing their own limitations, not yours." Richard, during a break at work, watched the video on a borrowed cell phone. Every word was a painful reminder of how his arrogance had cost him $50 million in stock and the respect of the entire industry. The best revenge was not destroying those who had hurt her, but building something so extraordinary that they became completely irrelevant. If this story of overcoming adversity and justice touched your heart, subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that true talent always wins over prejudice.